I think that was it.
I think that's one of the great things about hockey is they just basically everyone gets a nickname, but 92% of them are something involved with their name, and then just add E at the end of it.
Something like that.
It's
Oatsy.
It's better than first three letters of last name. I'm sick of that one.
Although Hal Gill, the much maligned Hal Gill, who, congratulations, Hal, won the Stanley Cup with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
We were all so happy for Hal Gill.
I was.
And
after I ran him out of town, and then today became a Montreal Canadian. So now Bruins fans can take their hatred for Hal Gill to a whole new, unexplored level. I never thought I'd see the day, but now it's going to happen.
It's
now
great.
I don't feel bad for Gill because his name's going to be etched on the Stanley Cup by the time he wears those colors in a game against the Bruins.
Mick, it's always great when hate can blossom.
Well, that's what pro sports are all about.
So what was Hal Gill's nickname?
Skills.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that.
It wasn't even Skillsy?
No, it was Skills. I'm sure some people called him that once and got slapped for it, but
I'm going to call him Skillsy
Milan Lucic, who is really the lightning rod for Bruins fans in this new era of goodness for the Bruins.
Lightning rod in a good way. He's a
that's right.
beloved player.
He is called Luch.
But I mean, it's never like Spider Bones. It's always something,
No, they used to get that back in like
all.
the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. There were NHL players who had crazy nicknames like that.
Right.
What's the best hockey nickname of all time?
The best hocky nickname of all time, boy.
That's a tough one.
I'm sure as soon as this podcast shuts off, I'll know what I should have said. That I can promise you.
I think
if I come up with it at any time during the conversation, regardless of what we're talking about.
You just blurt it out.
Blurt it out.
We have no worries that you will live up to that promise. Baseball is also like a nicknamey sport. Like Francona, we gave a pretty good effort tonight. Millsy did a great job on the bench. We got Farrell's. How would you do John Farrell's nickname? What's his nickname? JF.
Probably something from when the bird crapped on his head when he was out pitching one time.
Yeah, that seemed to be his big story.
There's got to be some nickname that came up with that.
Dookie or Turdy.
Could be Dookie. Did you guys see the fake list of 100 the famous 104 steroid user list from 2003? Of course, we've got A-Rod and Sosa, and now there's 102 names. So some website, and it was a fairly reputable website, kind of posted there. They said, hey, we got this list, and here it is. This is the list. And, of course, it says unconfirmed, so they don't get sued. I have the list right here.
This wasn't SouthCoastToday.com.
It was not. Okay. But since the list has been devalued as fake, I don't think there's no harm in reading the list. Is there?
I mean,
because it's not right. So it's just a list of names that some erroneous report said were on the list. But when you look at the names that are on the list, every single one of them makes you say, yeah,
I can see that.
And I'll tell you what, I mean, the list leads right off with 8 Red Sox players, and maybe I shouldn't name them one by one, but are we supposed to believe that the Red Sox, while everyone else was doing steroids, that the highly paid, highly competitive, going to the World Series, going to the playoffs, that the Red Sox weren't using steroids?
Bite your tongue.
I mean, I hear the Boston radio guys, they start talking about steroids, and they make fun of Giambi and A-Rod, and they make it seem like we're never going to hear these names that I have right here. I could say them. I could say them right now.
I think you should, because I want to hear them.
All right, I won't say the names, but I'll do sound.
Can you give them their Tito nicknames?
I could do that.
A late great Yankee fan that used to call up WEEI. Butch and the Cape or
Butch
something.
and the Cape.
Yeah, he had a nickname for the first player on your list.
Well, instead of doing nicknames, I'm going to do.
I'll give the viewing audience a hint.
The hint is Mick staring at the camera. I don't know what. I still don't get it. I don't even know who he's talking about. Well, I'll do sound alikes. Okay.
Okay.
The first one is would be, I don't know who it is, but you could refer to him as Romar Harciapara. Would be one. You could have Lanny Framirez. You could have Lonnie Flamen.
Sounds like a bunch of idiots to me.
You could have Hot Lixon. You could have...
That sounds like a porn star.
Hot Lixon. Actually, that's a pretty good name.
That's going to be your new porn nickname if you ever do one.
You know what? It's funny. I have
slappy guy.
It's been a long time since I've been approached to do pornography. It's probably not something I'm going to get into at this stage of my life, but if I do,
Bob's videos, they make him right in Yarmouth.
Really?
Yeah, in his backyard. He's a high school teacher, or he was.
Wow, that sounds libelous.
I didn't say his last name, did I?
I actually have a Faye Kill Your brand jersey at home.
Faye Kill Your brand.
Yeah,
yes.
It's really one of the funkiest Red Sox jerseys I've ever seen.
I think the one on this list that everyone can kind of agree that those sound-alikes that we just mentioned would be fairly good candidates.
Mm-hmm.
The one that no one wants to hear is Fredro Martinez. I'm pretty sure that the sound-alike of him, no one would really want to think that he was on steroids. My take on steroids, and I'd like to hear your take on it, is it was an awfully tough spot for players to be in. And I'm not going to shed too many tears for guys that were making $10 million a year. It was an awfully difficult time to decide what you're going to do, whether you're going to take steroids or not take them, when they help your performance, and so many people in the league seem to be doing them. How many Red Sox come out of it? I think it's something that's not going to really, we're not going to really understand the era until 5 years down the line, when it's kind of past, like all the other eras pass and the heat passes and you start to see them for what they are. Sammy Sosa, maybe
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You don't believe in the theory that that the ability of the chemical pharmaceutical industry and to continue changing and moving the target away from the arrow and making it elusive, that this game is going to continue this hide and seek thing, and because the drug keeps changing, the evolution of it, and there's always somebody continuing to mess around. And the other thing is the stereotypical steroid user is that guy that's just bulging out of his baseball jersey when you see him on television, compared to that when you think of him earlier in his career. But when I think back to '96, when Petticorda won the Australian Open in tennis, he was an extremely skinny guy.
Now,
and he didn't look any more muscly, but he wound up banned from tennis from the ATP Tour for a year for using a banned substance. Now, there's been another guy who was one of my favorite players when I was still umpiring, Guillermo Cañas, who is then got a huge suspension and is now in sort of the twilight of his career, but he's a much more robust kid. But he was a robust kid when I first ever saw him. So I think that in a lot of cases, steroids are used not by guys who wind up looking huge, but guys who are looking for adequacy at lower levels. And we never hear about them because they're not famous. But I think that there's a ton of underlying steroid usage.
I agree.
The major part of the business is definitely amongst those guys who are searching for adequacy to get to another level.
Well, because it helps you get where you need to go, as much as anything else. I mean, and the guys that you see coming up with steroids, these are not guys that are, lazy guys who don't want to put in the work to be great athletes too. I mean, in fact, a lot of the guys, if you look at Barry Bonds and A-Rod and Clemens, they're among the most dedicated guys. It's almost like they couldn't pass up. Not only did they did all the work, but they couldn't pass up. They couldn't pass up that extra thing that would make them even greater.
Well, you had said, when we're 5 years out of this era, we can look back, but I don't know when we are going to be out of this era.
That's what I was
for
trying
the exact
to get to,
thing for what Mick's saying, because it's happening. They stay ahead of it. It still happens at the lower levels. There's no perfect testing. There's no blood testing. And until all this stuff goes, we can never say that it's gone. So there's always going to be those suspicions. We might as well just throw out now all the suspicions we have about these guys, start letting them into the Hall of Fame, because it's gotten to the point where it's so saturated. But the one thing I'll say about those names, or the sound-alikes to those names that you read.
I don't know, and those are just sound-alikes.
But what's the common thread about those guys? Those are guys who are no longer part of the Boston Deadlocks. So,
well, one name that I did not mention is still part of the Boston.
And what would the sound alike be for that one?
Mavid Gortees.
But what I'm questioning though is if we want to say
It's a fake list, by the way.
Well, they call him Fig Slappy, don't they?
it is a fake list, but these are the same names that always come up
Right.
when we talk about suspected Red Sox players.